Welcome to the Heroic Investing Show. As first responders, we risk our lives every day. Our financial security is under attack. Our pensions are in a state of emergency. A single on-duty incident can alter or erase our earning potential instantly and forever. We are the heroes of society. We are self-reliant and we need to take care of our own financial future. The Heroic Investing Show is our toolkit of business and investing tactics on our mission to financial freedom.
Welcome to the Heroic Investing Show, a podcast for first responders, members of the military, veterans, and anyone looking to improve their financial future and gain some freedom with their time. We teach America's heroes how to build passive income, build their startup business, and safely grow wealth through real estate and other alternative investments. We help current and prior first responders put protections, systems, and a team in place to help them build a life where they can focus on their passion, that service or product that they are uniquely gifted to share with others, making the world a better place for all of us. My name is Gary Pinkerton, and I co-host this show with Jason Hartman. My guest today is Pastor Chris Edmonds. And Pastor Edmonds has been a pastor since the 1980s, I think he said, in Tennessee, Maryville, Tennessee, or as he says, Maryville, Tennessee. And he is the son of a World War II and Korean veteran. And after his father passed, he learned some tremendous things about what an incredible hero he was in concentration camps and on the front lines. And so that led him to write a book that Chris will describe for you. It's one of the more inspiring podcasts I've ever done, and I have no doubt the book is one of the more inspiring books I will ever read. My copy is on the way. I did not have the ability to read it before this, but I cannot wait to dig into this. I was moved by Pastor Edmonds' story, the history of his father. Some of this hits very close to home for me. All of my father and all of my uncles were in World War II, and one was a prisoner of war in the Pacific. So hit it close home to me, but I think everyone out there is going to see this as an inspiring story, is going to want to grab the book and use it to inspire their future actions in life and to help them inspire the young generations that follow behind us. I can't recommend strongly enough that you go hard after this one and grab a copy of the book. Thank you so much, and without further ado, here is Pastor Edmonds. Well, Heroic Investors, welcome back, and thanks for joining us one more time. As I've said in the past, we have a tremendous guest who's got an amazing story about his father and about a lot of research that he's done on World War II and his father's involvement. And he's also got some great stuff that he's doing in his own world to help propagate the services out there and the people who come and join all of you and start working with you in their ability to lead and understand what leadership and service is about in the military. So it's with great pleasure I'd like to introduce to everyone Chris Edmonds. And Chris, please, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for joining us, and please tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, Gary, thank you. It's an honor to be with you and your listeners. I'm so grateful for our first responders, our veterans, and all our service industries, the people who serve others. They bring great not only leadership but a great influence on our lives, and so I'm grateful for that. I'm a pastor. I've been pastoring since the late 80s, and I'm a pastor at Piney Grove Baptist Church in Maryville, Tennessee. Back home, we call it Maryville. So, but it is Maryville, Tennessee, and it's just an honor to be with you to talk about my father, who I just recently discovered some incredible things about him, and because of that, I've been speaking all over the world and sharing his story, powerful story of love and power and leadership. So it's an honor to be with you, Gary.
Absolutely. Chris, how many years how many years was your dad with you? And I mean, did you know him as an adult?
Yes, I knew him. He died when I was 26 years old. So he was 39 when I was born. So I often say that he lived a lifetime before I was ever born, which he really did, and a lifetime that he never talked about. He was in World War II. He was in the Korean War. He had married his high school sweetheart just as he was in the service. He married her, and I knew nothing about that really, that experience. And so after he served in the Korean War, it's when he met my mom and married her. And the rest is history for me. You know, I showed up about 5 years later, and so it's been an incredible journey to know my father. Though he was older than most of the other fathers, you know, of my friends, he was just as involved, just as active as the other fathers. He was my baseball coach. He helped with our scouting program. He was very involved in the school. And also he was a man of faith. He was a man of faith during the war, and he was a man of faith obviously after the war and throughout his life. And so his faith and my mom's faith have also helped me on my journey of faith. And so I'm grateful for a father that I thought of as a hero. You know, I mean, a good father is heroic in our minds. And that was the kind of dad that I had, and so discovering even more about his heroics has been phenomenal.
That's amazing. I appreciate you sharing that with us. You and I have a lot in common. My father was in World War II. He was 44, I think it was, when I was born. So some of the very similar memories that you just spoke about. And yeah, it was great. I've always felt fortunate to have had an experienced, much more mature father than a lot of my friends did. He didn't throw the football around as much as it sounds like your father might have. But we also lived on a dairy farm and didn't do a lot of sports, you know, in that time.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, we lived just in the suburbs in a neighborhood, and but so we were actively involved in all the neighborhood kind of activities and things. But he's like your dad. He had values that were indelibly written into my life, that he lived before me the way that you should, you know, and making the right choices and doing what's right for others. And so in one sense of the world, I was shocked when I discovered what he did in World War II to save thousands of men. And then, but yet I wasn't shocked. It didn't really, after I thought about it, but, you know, that's so much like Dad. I mean, I can see him doing that, and standing up for what's right. So, I think his life is a testament for the potential that's in all of us. I really believe an ordinary life lived well is extraordinary, even heroic.
Yeah.
And every act of goodness and kindness and generosity that we do for the good of others leaves a lasting legacy that lives on. You know, we don't think about the opening the door for an individual or taking them a meal, you know, down the street to someone who's in need, or just helping them with a project in their home, or help stop at the side of the road and fix a flat tire for somebody. All of those leave a legacy of greatness and goodness that it inspires others and helps that to be passed on. And so that's the kind of life Dad lived before me, you know, in front of me, but it's also the kind of life he lived wherever he was at, even before I was born.
And that's beautiful. So you wrote a book recently called No Surrender, and the subtitle is The Story of an Ordinary Soldier's Extraordinary Courage in the Face of Evil. You have a website for it, right? And just mention those if you would, and then parts of the stories that you've already been telling are in there, but we'd love to dig, if you would, into just some aspects of it that you're comfortable sharing, specifically about the things he did, the heroic actions in World War II. Yeah,
he was in World War II, and the book is nosurrenderbook.com if you want to go check it out. It's called No Surrender, but you can find it on nosurrenderbook.com, and there's quite a few pictures on there that aren't in the book. There's also a reading guide that you can download and links to some other information. And then there's RoddieEdmonds.com, as well. And both of those websites can help you get more into the story. But basically, Dad was in World War II, and he served as Master Sergeant of the 106th Infantry Golden Lions, and he was in the 422nd Regiment. And they were stationed. They found their stations and replaced the 2nd Division on the front lines, just on the other side of the German, just inside Germany, on December 10th. And then 6 days later, what they thought was a quiet sector, there was no action whatsoever, there hadn't been any action, erupted and ultimately became the Battle of the Bulge. And Dad found himself in the midst of a violent conflict that obviously he had trained for, but had no idea, how brutal it would be. And he and his men fought valiantly. They were at overwhelming odds, but they fought valiantly and ultimately held off the Germans for 3 days to kind of disrupt the German timetable. And ultimately, I think that's what helped the Allies to win the Battle of the Bulge, was that initial resistance. But they were so overwhelmed that they were captured. And so he spent 100 really harsh days in 2 German prisoner of war camps. But he never talked about it. He never came home and talked about it. He never, even when I would bring it up as a college kid, and I'd say, Dad, look, you wrote you kept 2 journals, and those journals some of it's very clear and some of it's very cryptic. So tell me what happened. I don't want to talk about it, son. Yeah. And Dad was one who would always talk. I mean, he had a gift for gab. He was the kind of person, if you walked in the room, he would light it up and he would warm your heart. And then when he left, you wished you were back. He was just that kind of full of life individual. But man, he would clam up and shut up and not say a word when you brought up the war.
My uncle.
He didn't want to talk about.
Yeah, my uncle. My dad and all his brothers were in World War II, and I think it was 6 in total. And one of them, Air Force, was in the Army Air Corps, I guess, at the time. But he was captured, and he was on Corregidor Island and did the Bataan Death March, and very similar to your father, some tough times, I guess. And it was 2 or 3 years, I think, for that group. Very similar, and he just passed a couple years ago, and I tried to, one last time have that conversation with my uncle as well. He was in his late 80s, and he wouldn't have the conversation. He never did talk about it all throughout my childhood. I've heard different stories. I don't know if your father shared with you why. Did he ever share with you why he doesn't want to?
He would just kind of encapsulate it and say, son, there's some things I'd rather not talk about. And, the Germans wanted to humiliate us. Yeah. That was their goal. And that's about all he would say. And of course, in his journal, he wrote, there's a lot I'm not going to write because it's just some things are too bad to write about.
Yeah, so it's just painful
he left
memories.
Some things out of his journal. Yeah.
Just painful memories.
But then he also wrote, he also jotted down that he said, I'm going to go back to my family, and I don't want to talk about it. So, I'm writing this, so if they want to read it, they can. But he never pulled it out. He never showed it to anybody, and he kind of kept it tucked away in his dresser drawer. And, only until years later, after he died in 1985, and then in 2006, I think it was, or 2005, one of my twin daughters was attending college, and she was given an assignment by the history professor, along with some other students in her group, to do a family history project. Pick a family member that's alive and do something, that involves them from a history standpoint. And even though Dad passed away, they chose him because he was a prisoner of war in World War II, and the professor was excited to let him do it. And that's when we dug the diaries back out and began. They used them as part of their narration, and they made a video. And I watched the video, and it was just Battle of the Bulge pictures, just nondescript pictures. I had a picture of Dad in there from time to time, but the narration was word for word out of Dad's diary. They just took words right out of his diary. And those words, it just seemed like they jumped off of the screen and into my heart and just said, you got to go find out what happened. And so I was just passionate about, and I didn't know if anything had happened like I ended up discovering, but I just felt really a providential call from God to say, he nudged me, go find out what happened. And then, I found out that in his POW experience, he saved thousands of fellow POWs from certain doom, and including more than 200 Jewish American POWs from being sent to their death. And so that's what the book is about. My journey. The book is about his journey and his. I discovered there's so much I discovered as I started digging into this story, and I believe God just dropped providential breadcrumbs for me to keep one step ahead of me, and just so I just clue after clue. But Dad, he trained at Fort Jackson in South Carolina, and went from a private to a master sergeant in less than 2 years.
Wow.
So that's phenomenal. That's amazing. Yeah. And his I found information that said his superior officer congratulated him and said, congratulations, right now you're the youngest master sergeant in the Army to make master sergeant. So just all kinds of tidbits like that. And so I didn't go into this to write a book. I went into this to find out what happened to my father. And so my journey, people say, well, how did you write this book? I said, well, my journey wrote this book. I just kept discovering things and meeting other POWs who were in the camp with Dad and hearing their stories, and their stories are powerful. So it's my story, it's Dad's story, it's mostly Dad's story, and then the men who serve with him, it's their stories. And I think it's America's story. Our men and women who served then, who are serving now and putting their life on the line, whether it's in the armed forces or it's in service to our community as first responders and or police officers, medical personnel. All of these people are heroes because they're giving, and they're giving to help the needs of others, and so it's America's story. It makes you'll cry, you'll laugh, you'll reflect on your own family life, but you'll also stand up and cheer. You'll cheer because we win, and we overcome, and it's full of hope, it's full of faith. It's just an incredible story. My greatest reviews have been from the POWs who are dear friends now, but who I've met and who shared their stories, and everyone who is still living. Some have passed away since we started this journey, but all the ones who are alive and well say they give the greatest accolades to this story and to the power of it. And for me, that is so satisfying to know that the men who lived it say, this is accurate, this is what happened, you need to read this. Wow. And so I encourage anybody that wants to be inspired to enjoy life, express love, and embrace the Lord above, and be a difference, to make a difference in the lives of others. You need to read this story, this book, and so I'm praying that millions of folks will get a hold of this story and not just read a book, but put it into their hearts and live a life that aspires to what these men did.
Thank you for doing all of that. You'd shared with me off air that your father posthumously is up for some awards or has received some awards. Could you discuss that a little?
Oh yeah, it's a part of my journey. Dad, when I first heard the story, I left New York City after talking with one of the POWs, Lester Tanner, who lives there in Manhattan, still alive today and still full of life, full of energy and full of love. He he shared the story with me, and he said, your father's deserving of the Medal of Honor, and I agreed with him. I thought, yeah, that's what we should do. So I went back and we began that journey. So Dad's still in the consideration process for the Medal of Honor, but as a result of that research and all that work to package a presentation for the Medal of Honor, a friend of Lester sent it to Yad Vashem in Israel, and so Dad was awarded the and honored by being chosen as righteous among the nation for saving more than 200 Jewish American soldiers. He is he's only the 5th American, and he's the only U.S. soldier to receive righteous among the nations. And according to Yad Vashem, he's the first of the righteous to save American Jews. And so it's been quite an honor and a joy. Just amazing fact that Dad is one of the very few in the world who's been honored by the nation of Israel with their highest honor as a non-Jew saving Jewish people during the Holocaust. And President Obama attended the ceremony, and it was a star-studded event. Steven Spielberg also came, and just lots of dignitaries from around the world were there, and Prime Minister Netanyahu even Skyped in live from Jerusalem, and so quite an honor. Dad is currently being considered by Congress on both the House and the Senate for the gold medal, the Congressional Gold Medal, which is the highest civilian award. So whatever awards he gets, I think he's certainly deserving of. But more than anything, the greatest reward for Dad and for me would be for people to live like he and his men did.
That's amazing.
Do what stand up for what's right.
Yeah.
And speak the truth. That's what Dad did in that POW camp. And then serve others. And when you do that, you shine light and love and leadership on the world, because you see, every one of us has the potential and the capacity to do something heroic and make a difference in our own world. And it just requires for us to intercede on behalf of others. We see something strong or something that's not right, then we intercede. When we do that, we influence others, and we influence the situation. We make a difference. And that inspires others, because Lester said when your father defied the Nazi commanders, said that made us all brave. It inspired all of us to stand together and to not waver. And when you do that, all you got to do is invest in others. I have a friend that says, find a need and fill it. He said, there's lots of needs around here. Just find one and meet the need.
Seems pretty simple, doesn't it?
And that's pretty simple, but that's the way Dad was. He would close all of his prayers. He was a great man of faith, and he came to know his Lord Savior Jesus Christ as a teenage boy in the middle school age, and in a little Methodist church in South Knoxville. But it fundamentally and indelibly changed him and transformed his heart to think of others first, himself last. And so he embodied that. And so he would close every prayer he ever prayed, around the dining table, or if he was at church or whenever, he would always close with, says, help us help others who can't help themselves. Man. And I never really thought much about it. I mean, I thought, yeah, that's great. That's what we should be doing. But never until I learned the true nature of his character. He lived by a deep-seated moral code, and it's what I call Roddie's code. Choose right, oppose evil, dignify life, and express love to everyone. And that's the way he lived. And when I discovered that he actually lived that in the context of the brutality of war, in the midst of harsh POW camps, where he was the leader and no one else told him what to do, he still stood up and did what was right, even with a gun pressed to his head.
Yeah.
Then I said, wow, that's the way I need to live.
That's amazing.
And that's the way all of us need to live.
You teach leadership development to military leaders, I guess, right, at University of Alabama in Huntsville. Is that something that came out of your research with Dad, writing Dad's book, or is that something you've done for a while? I
was doing that while I was involved in the research for Dad. A dear friend of mine, Dr. Jerry Westbrook, is a retired professor from the University of Alabama, Huntsville, and he teaches leadership, and he asked me to join him in that effort, and so we've kind of teamed up together to do that. And we teach military leaders, particularly at the Missile Defense Agency.
Okay.
Many of them are civilians, but some of them are active in the military as well. And it's one of the most popular courses that they offer there. Not because of that we do it, but it's because of the material. It's the impact of the material. And I have an HR background, human resources background, so I kind of bring some of the people side to it. But one of the most popular sessions that we do is where I share that story and just share some leadership concepts from it. So it's the more I discovered about that story, the more it just sort of fit in. It wasn't a part of our program, but it's become a part of something that we do every time, just because it fits so well, and it kind of embodies all the things we're trying to teach into one real life situation.
Yeah, and it's become part of your story, so it's hard to teach without your story coming out, right? And what drives you.
Yeah, exactly. And I introduce myself as I am a pastor, but I'm also CEO of Roddie's Code, and of course immediately everybody's like, well, what's Roddie's Code? So but I just am grateful for the opportunity to inspire folks. I mean, the goal of Roddie's Code is inspiring people everywhere. And I speak from anywhere from 5th grade on up, and we're all basically students until we pass away. We're all still learners, and every group I've ever met in front of, whether it's 5th graders up to senior adults, leave inspired to do what's right for others. And it's not because of me. I just tell the story. The story is powerful, and the story does it all. And so I hope people will take a moment to pick up the book. You can get it in hard copy. You can get it in audio. You can get it on Kindle or your tablet reader. And there's also a young reader's version, 9 to 14-year-olds.
Nice. Which
I'm very excited about. Yeah, it's very powerful. And so anyway, lots of different ways to get a hold of it. I even think there's a downloadable, like a PDF version of some sort. So there's all kinds of ways to get a hold of it. But and then if you want to have me come and put some blood and flesh around that story and tell you some things that maybe aren't in the book, give you some insights about Dad that aren't in the book, that actually, when you write a book, there's a lot of things left on the floor, are cut out.
Cutting room floor, right?
that really probably are important. But I would love to come to any community or any company. There's leadership. There's incredible leadership principles in this story. As a matter of fact, West Point is currently using Dad's story as a leadership training module for all their cadets, which we hope to see that expanded. So very, very grateful for that as well.
Well, Pastor Chris Edmonds, is there anything I haven't asked or we haven't discussed that we should for the audience?
Well, probably, but I can't remember right now.
Well, this has been action-packed, and it's been fantastic. Just give out the contact information one more time for the book and you.
Okay. NoSurrenderBook.com, nosurrenderbook.com, and then also RoddieEdmonds.com. And if you want to contact me personally, you can do that. We have a contact page on the
right there on the website.
RoddieEdmonds.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there on the website. And you, if you want to give out my email address, we can do that as well.
Well, please do. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that you've touched that would like to reach out.
Okay. RWEMOH. So it's RWEMOH @gmail.com.
Wonderful. Gosh, Chris, thank you so much for spending that much time with our audience and for everything you've done for your dad's story to propagate that, story of heroism. But more importantly, I think, is that you keep the story going and that you're out there reaching today's leaders with it. Really appreciate your efforts.
Well, thank you, Gary. And if I do get a chance to come to your area, we've got 2 different documentaries we can show that actually let some of these POWs tell the story in their own words, and it's powerful. They actually won many, many awards, and Academy Awards gave it honorable mention last year, so we're very grateful for that. So
that's fantastic.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
You have a blessed day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.